By the of the Rebbe to learn Hilchos Beis Abchira in the days Ben HaMitzorim. We have the honor today. We have a Choshev Gaman, Choshev Mechanchim in Unser Kehila, Rabbi Chosid, Shmuel, הכהן וויספיש. Will give us some insights into Hilchos Beis Abchira. Before that, everybody should give tzedakah b'tzibur as the row of the Rebbe. There's pushkas on the table. Everybody, please go to the Rabbi Wisfish. B'vakasha.
I'd like to dedicate this limud to this yard site of Yosef ben Shmuel. The Rambam says in Hilchos Beis Abchira, the end of Perek Aleph, last halacha in Perek Aleph, the Rambam says, "Ein oisin kol hakelim mit chilasan, ela l'shem hakedesh." All the kelim in the Beis Hamikdash have to be made l'shma, has to be made in honor of the kedesh. What does this mean? Throughout the Sikha, we'll try and explain this Inyan, what this means. So go back a little bit. The Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, Mitzvahs HaSeichaf, the Rambam says, "Shetzivonu livnes beis abchira la'aveda bei yeh ha'krava v'avaras eish tamid v'omru yisbarach v'asli mikdash." It's a mitzvah to build the beis hamikdash, livnes beis abchira. And then the Rambam is mamshich. The Rambam continues and says, "Shezeh klal kelul minim harbe." This klal of building the beis hamikdash included in it many different kinds of things. And the Rambam rechanteis, Shem ha'meneira v'ha'shulchan v'ha'mizbeach v'zulasam. Many parts of the Mishkan and the beis hamikdash. Kulam mechalkei hamikdash v'hakol yikari mikdash. All of these things are called the Mishkan, the Mikdash, the Mishkan, the Mikdash. Ukva yichad atzivu b'chol chelik v'chelik. The Rambam says a few words, a little shver. The Rambam says that each has its own mitzvah separately. So this is a stira right away here in the lashon of the Rambam. And the Rambam starts off and says that all the parts of the Mishkan are chalakim of the Mishkan. All the kelim, the menorah, the shulchan, it's all parts of the Mishkan. And then the Rambam says that, by the way, every Inyan has its own separate mitzvah. So what's going on? So is all part of the same mitzvah, or is each one separately? What's the nafkemina in the Rambam? The Rambam has to add this thing on over here and say that yada ein is bazunder. So the Rebbe explains that b'chlal, when we have pratim and a klal, there is three different ways of explaining this. We could say that all the pratim and nothing, when does it become a metzias? When all the pratim are gathered together, then it becomes a inyan klal, or one inyan shalom. For example, it's the shitta that says that chatzi shir mutim el atera. So two chatzi shirs are nothing. But one chatzi shir is nothing. When you put two chatzi shirs together, then it becomes a davar shalom, and then it becomes an inyan. But by itself, it's nothing. Another way to learn is that all the pratim, all the details have their own chshivas. Each prat has its own chshivas. And when they come together, it makes a new inyan. But besides that, each thing is also inyan b'fnei atzmei. L'moshel, when you have that 10 people make a minyan, you need a davar shebekdush, you need 10 people. Every year there's chashav b'fnei atzmei. But then when all the 10 yidden come together, but a naya kedusha, and now you can say dvar shebekdusha. Or you could say about a third way, and the third way is that each one has that the pratim themselves are not chashuv. But when they come together, the prat also gets its own separate chshivas. So they're not chshivas, but then when they come together, each one has its own chshivas. So when we look in the Kliya Mishkan or the Kliya Mikdash, we can also explain these three different ways to explain this the chshivas and the kedusha of each of the Kliya Mishkan. One way to learn is that l'chatchila the Kliya Mishkan have no chshivas. But when you take all the clay Mishkan, you take the Aron, and you take the Shulchan, you take the Menorah and everything, you put it into the Beis HaMikdash, then it becomes a Mishkan. Then it becomes a Mikdash. But they don't have their own chshivas. Each one is only a prat of the whole Mishkan together. That's one way to learn. And then, if you're dismantling the Mishkan, there's no chshivas anymore, so that's a separate mitzvah. It's not part of the mitzvah of the Mishkan, it's a separate mitzvah. Okay. Another way to learn is that each keli has its own chshivas. The Menorah has its chshivas, the Shulchan, the Mizbeach, and so weiter. But when you take all of these chashivas zachen and you put it all together into one, then it becomes a higher kedusha. Then there's a kedusha mikdash. But each one for itself is also chashiv. We'll soon see nafkimin in these ways. A third way is that the kelim themselves, have maybe a little chshivas, haben sie, but when they come together, comes a new gather in the chshivas of each of the klei mishkan, and then there's kedushas menorah, kedushas shulchan, and so weiter. All part of that only comes when it's put together. So what would be the nafkemina in these things? So when we say that it has to be lishma, we said before that the Rambam says that all the whole mikdash ein oisin kala kelim et chilasan elo l'shem hakedesh. So it has to be lishma. So what's the lishma? Do we say that the klei mishkan is only like a hachsha mitzvah? A hachsha mitzvah l'mashal. It comes to making tzitzis. So there's different gedorim in when we say that what has to be the shema in making tzitzis. So the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch that says that shiyu tovin v'shazurin l'shem tzitzis. And bali nefesh u'machmer, even the niputz atzemer should be the shema, but ein neigin kin. So there's different. Where does the lishma start? So if we say that the kelim are only a hachsha mitzvah, it's only in order there should be a mishkan. So you make the lishma is that when you're making it that it's the shem kedushas mishkan, that it should be later, it should be part of the mishkan. But now lechatchila it's only a hachsha mitzvah, like when you're making the tzitzis, in order that the tzitzis should later be part of the whole baguette. Or you're making one corner, it's only a mitzvah when you have all four corners. So it's different. In the zweite even, we could say that the kelim have a cheshivus b'fnei atzmei, and the lishma has to be l'shem kedushas each inyan. It's not pshat l'shem kedushas mishkan, but each keli has to be made l'shem kedushas ha'aron, l'shem kedushas ha'menorah, l'shem kedushas ha'shulchan, and so weiter. Each one is part of. Each one has its own gather, and its own kedusha, and you have to do that. And that's the Rambam, the Ramban. And later on in Mitzvah Lamed Gimel, the Ramban says that it's bad some two separate mitzvahs. There's mitzvahs of the Kelim and the mitzvah of the Mishkan. It's not the same thing. It's not part of the same mitzvah. Another way to learn, third ways to learn is that since the Kelim have a kedusha b'fnei atzmai, but it's two things together. It's a kedusha b'fnei atzmai and it's meisiv, and the whole thing becomes a. So there has to be both things. There has to be the shema l'shem kedusha mishkan, and the shema l'shem the inyan the kli prati. And there's chilukim over here. Very interesting chiluk. The Rambam says that you can't build the Beis HaMikdash by night. Are you allowed to build the kelim by night? The Kliya Mishkan, are you allowed to build by night? It says B'yem Hakim is a Mishkan, B'yem Hakim B'layla. So does that affect also the Kalim, or the Kalim can be made by night? So if we say that the Kalim have their own gather, it's not part of the Binyan Mishkan, so then we can make it by night. But if you say that it's part of the Mishkan, like we learned in the first way to learn, and even the third way to learn, both ways, so then it's a chelik of a kamas Mishkan, it's a chelik of a Mishkan, just like you can't make the Mishkan by night, or the Beis HaMikdash by night, you can't make the Kelim by night either. So Bizeh, we can now go back to the Lashon of the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvahs and understand what the Rambam says. And the Rambam learns so that it's take both in Yonim together. So the Rambam says, the Lashon of the Rambam is, in Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Rambam says, Shezah klal kolel minim harbe. Shema menorah, v'ashulchan, v'mezbeach, kulam mechalkei hamikdash, v'kulam v'hakol yikari mikdash. It's all part of the mikdash. So that means that all of the kelim together have one gathered together. That even though each one has its own kedusha, but when it comes together, it all becomes part of one mishkan together. So that's the third way to learn. The Ramban Taka learns that it's two separate things. The Rambam learns not two separate things, but the kelim of the mishkan are adding into each one has its own tzivu, but it's all part of one tzivu of Asli Mikdash Shanti B'Seicham, that it's kelim minim harba, and together it makes a whole mishkan together. Right.
That's a lot. Yeah.